Hollywood legends often dazzled audiences with their on-screen performances, but many of their final wishes reveal sides as fascinating and sometimes stranger than their public personas. Today, we uncover the strangest burial requests of Golden Age stars, stories that blur the lines between spectacle, sentiment, and mystery. These iconic figures each left behind legacies marked not only by fame, but also by haunting or peculiar final acts that continue to intrigue us. Let's dive deep into their unique last wishes and the reasons behind them. Bela Lugosi 1. Known forever as the chilling face of Dracula, Bela Lugosi's final act was a haunting embrace of the very monster that defined his life. Upon his death in 1956, Lugosi requested to be buried in his full Dracula costume, complete with the iconic cape. This wasn't a mere publicity stunt. It was a deeply personal statement from a man whose career was forever entwined with the Count. Lugosi had struggled with typecasting, unable to escape the shadow of Dracula, and his choice reflected a bittersweet acceptance of this fate. Despite dying nearly penniless and having a modest funeral attended by only close friends and family, his grave in Holy Cross Cemetery, California, became a pilgrimage site for horror fans worldwide. His eerie burial stands as a testament to how much the role consumed his identity, even beyond the grave. Tallulah Bankhead 2. The magnetic and rebellious Tallulah Bankhead was famous for her husky voice, wild antics, and fearless personality. True to form, her burial request was anything but conventional. Bankhead wanted to be laid to rest with a bottle of bourbon, a pack of cigarettes, and a copy of her favorite book, the Bible. This odd trio perfectly captured the contradictions of her life, a woman of indulgence who still clung to spirituality. Her funeral in the early 1960s was a somber affair, but these personal items added her signature irreverence. Choosing St. Paul's Churchyard in Maryland, away from Hollywood's glitz, she opted for a burial close to her family roots. Even in death, Bankhead blended defiance, humor, and sentimentality, leaving a legacy as unforgettable as her life. Joan Crawford 3. Hollywood's queen of melodrama, Joan Crawford, was as complicated in death as she was on screen. She requested to be cremated and buried in a modest crypt at Ferncliff Cemetery, New York, far from the spotlight she commanded in life. The shock lies not just in the modesty, but in who she excluded from her will. Her two eldest children were left nothing but a cutting line, a decision fueled by years of public tension and Christina Crawford's damning memoir. Her ashes rest beside her final husband, Alfred Steele, in a quiet crypt that stands in stark contrast to her larger-than-life persona. This understated resting place leaves more questions about her turbulent personal life and strained family relationships, casting a shadow of mystery over one of Hollywood's most formidable stars. Jean Harlow 4. The original blonde bombshell, Jean Harlow, died tragically young at 26, leaving behind a legend shrouded in glamour and sadness. Her burial wish was deeply symbolic. She wanted to be laid to rest in a white gown surrounded by white flowers in a white marble crypt, a nod to purity and innocence despite her scandal-ridden life. Her grave at Forest Lawn Memorial Park, often called the Taj Mahal of the West, was funded by her devastated lover, William Powell. This regal resting place contrasts the fragility of her short life, symbolizing a desire to be remembered as untarnished and radiant. Jean Harlow's final request reflected the poignant hope of preserving her legacy as Hollywood's shining star, forever frozen in time. Clark Gable 5. Hollywood's king of Hollywood, Clark Gable, carried a heartbreaking secret even in death. His burial at Forest Lawn Memorial Park was quietly placed beside his beloved third wife, Carole Lombard, who died in a tragic plane crash in 1942. Despite remarrying twice afterward, Gable insisted on eternal rest by Lombard's side. His grave is marked by a simple plaque, rejecting the grandeur his career might have suggested. This modesty speaks volumes about his enduring grief and devotion, a quiet vulnerability behind the tough screen persona. Gable's final resting place is less about fame and more a love story frozen in eternity. Pola Negri, 6. Known for her European glamour and passionate romances, Pola Negri's final burial request was wrapped in mystery and devotion. She insisted on being buried with a vial of Rudolph Valentino's ashes, her rumored lover and one of Hollywood's greatest icons. However, Valentino was never officially cremated, and no concrete proof exists of these ashes, sparking skepticism and intrigue. Whether fact or elaborate myth, this request added to Negri's mystique. Her ornate grave in California mirrors her theatrical life, a shrine to a woman who thrived on sixth romance and drama, even in death staging one last enigmatic performance. W.C. Fields, 7. The sharp-tongued comedian W.C. Fields was as irreverent in death as he was in life. Despite spending much of his career in California, he detested the state and jokingly wished for an epitaph reading, "On the whole, I'd rather be in Philadelphia," a nod to his hometown. Though his family ultimately buried him in Forest Lawn Memorial Park, California, they left his grave marker plain, not honoring his sardonic epitaph wish. This decision only added to his legacy of humor and contradiction. Fields's resting place remains a quiet irony, a subtle punchline to a life filled with wit and disdain for convention. Mary Pickford, 8. Known as America's sweetheart, Mary Pickford was not only a beloved silent film star, but also a pioneering force behind the scenes in Hollywood. Despite her immense fame and fortune, Pickford's burial request reflected a deep longing for family and peace rather than grandeur. She chose to be interred in the Garden of Memory at Forest Lawn Memorial Park, California, a quiet, secluded area away from the main crowds. What makes her resting place unique is that she is buried alongside her mother and siblings, a poignant reminder of her strong family ties despite the pressures of fame. Her crypt is inscribed simply with her nickname, America's Sweetheart, a title she had mixed feelings about during her lifetime. Pickford's final wishes show a woman who, despite shaping an entire industry, found solace in the simple presence of loved ones. Her burial site contrasts the glitz she embraced on screen and highlights the private side of a Hollywood icon who sought genuine connection beyond the spotlight. Rudolph Valentino, 9. Rudolph Valentino, the Latin lover of silent cinema, died suddenly at just 31, leaving Hollywood and his fans stunned. Though his burial wishes were never formally documented, his close friends arranged for him to be placed in a borrowed crypt at Hollywood Forever Cemetery, a temporary measure that has lasted nearly a century. Valentino's grave quickly became a shrine for adoring fans, with stories swirling around the Lady in Black, a mysterious woman who visited his grave yearly, leaving a single red rose. This tradition has endured, adding layers of myth and devotion to his legacy. Valentino's resting place symbolizes not only the loss of a star too soon, but also the birth of a Hollywood legend whose charisma and tragic end sparked endless fascination. The borrowed crypt and ongoing rituals highlight the almost mythical status he acquired in death, making his grave a symbol of eternal romanticism and mystery. Errol Flynn, the swashbuckling star famed for his daring roles and hedonistic lifestyle, left behind a burial request as flamboyant as his life. Flynn wanted to be buried with a 6-foot statue of a woman, a centerpiece from his home said to represent beauty and indulgence. However, this extravagant wish was not fulfilled. The statue was deemed too impractical for burial, and Flynn's grave at Forest Lawn Memorial Park was marked simply. His funeral was an intimate affair with only close friends and family, a quiet farewell for a man whose life had been anything but subdued. Flynn's partial burial wish offers a glimpse into his personality. Someone who embraced both glamour and excess, but also appreciated simplicity in death. His resting place remains a symbol of Hollywood's golden era, where even final wishes were imbued with drama and style. Greta Garbo, 11. The enigmatic Greta Garbo famously said, "I want to be alone," a sentiment she carried into death. Garbo chose to be cremated and buried in her native Sweden, far from Hollywood's glare. Her ashes rest in a modest grave at Skogskyrkogården Cemetery in Stockholm, a UNESCO World Heritage Site known for its serene beauty. Remarkably, Garbo had purchased this burial plot decades before her death, signaling her wish for a private, dignified end. This decision reflected her lifelong aversion to fame's spotlight and a deep connection to her roots after years of self-imposed exile in New York City. Garbo's understated gravestone bears only her name, a stark contrast to the grandeur expected of a star of her caliber. Her burial symbolizes a deliberate retreat from public life, preserving her mystery and reinforcing her status as one of Hollywood's most elusive icons. Mae West, 12. Mae West, queen of double entendres and unapologetic confidence, made a bold statement even in death. West was buried in Brooklyn's Cypress Hills Cemetery in the family mausoleum, reinforcing her lifelong connection to her roots despite decades in Hollywood. Her tombstone bears the epitaph, "Mae West, I'm no angel," a direct nod to one of her most famous films and a fitting summary of her rebellious spirit. Adding to the spectacle, West was buried wearing a gown she personally selected years before, ensuring she was always ready for the spotlight, even in the afterlife. This final act was more than mere vanity. It was a declaration of a life lived on her own terms, full of wit and defiance. West's resting place remains a glamorous testament to a woman who broke boundaries and refused to conform, making her burial a final performance worthy of her unforgettable persona. Theta Bar, 13. Known as Hollywood's original vamp, Theta Bar's mystique extended far beyond her on-screen persona. Barra, who passed away in the mid-1950s, chose to be cremated, a highly unusual request at a time when cremation was uncommon, especially for a star of her stature. Her ashes were to be scattered in the Pacific Ocean, symbolizing a return to nature and a rejection of traditional Hollywood pomp. However, fulfilling this wish proved complicated. Her ashes remained with her family for years, delayed by emotional and logistical hurdles. It wasn't until decades later that her remains were finally scattered, honoring her original request. This delay added another layer to the enigma surrounding her life and death. Barra's legacy suffered from the loss of many of her films in a Fox Studios fire, making her story one of both captivating allure and tragic disappearance. Her final act was a silent rebellion against the Hollywood machine, choosing to vanish quietly into the vast ocean rather than remain ensnared in eternal glamour. Wallace Reed. Wallace. Reed was the shining boy of silent cinema, a matinee idol whose charisma lit up early 20th century screens. Yet, behind his polished image was a man tormented by substance dependency, a struggle born from prescribed treatments after a devastating injury. His death in the early 1920s shocked. 14. Hollywood. But it was his burial request that revealed a deeply personal side. Reed wanted to be buried with a silver locket containing a photograph of his wife, Dorothy Davenport, a symbol of love and sorrow. The locket represented not just affection, but a haunting reminder of the guilt and pain Reed carried in his final days. His grave is modest, deliberately so. He shunned grand monuments in favor of a simple resting place, perhaps seeking to erase the overwhelming public persona he once embodied. Dorothy, who stood by him throughout his decline, became the guardian of his legacy, preserving the memory of the man behind the myth. Reed's burial story is a poignant testament to love, loss, and the price of fame. John Simmons, 15. Jean Simmons, the British-American actress known for her timeless elegance, chose a burial that reflected grace over grandeur. Though not as flamboyant as some of her Hollywood contemporaries, Simmons requested a simple and private ceremony, underscoring her desire for peace away from the limelight she often shied from. Her grave in California is understated, surrounded by close family rather than throngs of fans. This choice mirrored her career, a steady, respected presence rather than a dazzling showstopper. Simmons' final request highlights a quiet dignity and the importance of personal connection over public spectacle. It's a reminder that even stars of immense talent often seek a humble farewell, preserving their humanity beyond the silver screen. Buster Keaton, 16th. Silent film legend. Buster Keaton was renowned for his stone-faced humor and daring physical comedy, but his burial reflected a surprisingly modest side. Keaton's final wish was for a simple gravesite without fanfare, away from the spotlight that had defined his career. His resting place in Forest Lawn Memorial Park is unpretentious, a quiet contrast to his exuberant screen persona. Despite his legendary status, Keaton faced financial difficulties and personal struggles late in life, making his burial choice a reflection of humility and perhaps fatigue with Hollywood's relentless pace. His grave attracts fans who admire his timeless contribution to cinema, but the simplicity of his final resting place tells a story of a man who valued peace and privacy above all. Keaton's burial is a silent nod to the resilience beneath the stoic facade. Gloria Swanson, 17. Gloria Swanson, an icon of silent and early sound cinema, chose a burial as glamorous as her legendary career. Swanson was interred in a stunning mausoleum in Hollywood Forever Cemetery, surrounded by ornate decorations reflecting her love for grandeur and style. Yet, behind this splendor was a woman who fiercely guarded her independence and carefully curated her legacy. Her burial site is both a tribute and a statement, a final curtain call befitting a star who lived for the spotlight. Swanson's resting place remains a pilgrimage site for fans, embodying the glitz and grit of old Hollywood. Her elaborate mausoleum stands as a lasting testament to a woman who refused to fade quietly, choosing instead to leave an indelible mark both in life and death. Thank you for joining us on this journey through Hollywood's most strange and unforgettable final burial requests. These stories remind us that behind every legend lies a deeply human, often mysterious side. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more fascinating tales from old Hollywood's golden era.